Just as I was about to call it a night, the phone rang. The voice on the other end delivered a blow that left me reeling. I had just settled into my favorite chair with a book ready to unwind from the day. The clock showed it was nearly midnight, which was an odd hour for anyone to call. I picked up the phone, my mind already wondering if it might be an emergency. "Hello," I answered. My voice was slightly weary. "You think your girlfriend is on some work trip?" It was a woman's voice, speaking abruptly, but in reality, she was in bed with her business partner. Before I could respond, the line went dead. I stared at the phone, my heart pounding in my chest for a moment. I was frozen, unable to process what I had just heard. Eva, my Eva, cheating on me. I couldn't believe it. We were happy, weren't we? I sat there in shock, the doorbell ringing. The sound jolted me back to reality. I jumped up and went to the door, half expecting to see someone who could explain this nightmare. But when I opened the door, there was no one there. Only an envelope lay on the step. I picked up the envelope and tore off the tape. Inside were several photographs. My stomach turned as I flipped through them. There was Eva, unmistakably in bed with her business partner. The images were grainy, taken from a distance, but there was no doubt about what they showed. I slumped. I stood there against the doorframe, my mind racing. Who could have sent these and why? My thoughts were interrupted by the realization that Eva had lied to me. She said she was on a business trip, but here she was in the arms of another man. I dialed her number, my fingers shaking. She answered on the third ring. She said cheerfully, "How's your night? Where are you, Eva?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. "I told you I'm in Chicago for the conference. Why did you lie to me?" I took a deep breath and tried to calm down. I was angry. I told her, "Eva, I know you're not at a conference. I have photos of you with him." There was a long silence. On the other end, when she finally spoke, her voice was cold. "How did you get those photos?" "It doesn't matter." I snapped. "Why, Eva? Why did you do this to me?" She sighed, and I could almost hear her rolling her eyes. "Look, Darren, it's complicated. I didn't mean for you to find out this way." I shouted. "You've been lying to me and cheating on me. How is that complicated?" I asked. "I've been lying to you and cheating on you. How is that complicated?" "I'm sorry," she said, but there was no emotion in her voice. "It just happened. You don't just happen to end up in bed with your business partner." "I can't do this right now," she said and hung up. I stared at the phone, feeling more alone than ever. The woman I loved had betrayed me, and now she couldn't even face me. I sank to the floor, the photographs scattered around me. How had everything fallen apart so quickly? I sat there for a long time, my mind a storm of emotions. Anger, sadness, disbelief. I was feeling more alone than ever. The woman I loved had betrayed me, and now she couldn't even face me. I sank to the floor, and the photographs scattered around me. How had everything fallen apart so quickly? I sat there for a long time, my mind a storm of emotions. Anger, sadness, disbelief. I thought about all the times Eva and I had shared, all the plans we had made. Was it all a lie? How long had she been seeing him behind my back? As I tried to make sense of it all, my phone rang again. I picked it up, hoping it was Eva, ready to explain. But it was the same anonymous number. "Who is this?" I demanded. "Just someone who thought you should know the truth." The woman replied. "You deserve better, Darren." The line went dead again. I sat there, the words echoing in my mind. I deserve better, but what did that even mean anymore? I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out what to do next. How do you move on when your whole world has been turned upside down? All I knew was that I couldn't let Eva's betrayal destroy me. I had to find a way to pick up the pieces and move forward. Dawn had broken. I made a decision. I would confront Eva face to face. I needed answers, and I needed to see the look in her eyes when she gave them to me. That was the only way I could begin to heal. My wife came in the morning. I said, "Come in," in a curt tone, stepping aside. She walked in, her eyes scanning the room as if looking for a clue to my anger. "This is what I mean. You lied to me, Eva. You cheated on me. How are we supposed to work through that?" She crossed her arms, her expression hardening. "It's not that simple." "Then explain it to me," I demanded. "Make me understand why you did this." Eva took a deep breath. "Okay, fine. Yes, I slept with. I was seeing someone else at the time, but it wasn't like I wanted to hurt you. It just happened." I repeated, incredulous. "That's your excuse?" She ran a hand through her hair, looking frustrated. "Darren, I was in a bad place. He and I have history. Before you and I got together, We were involved when we started dating. I thought I was over him, but I guess I wasn't. Why didn't you tell me this from the beginning? I asked in a softer voice, laced with pain because I didn't want to lose you. She said, her eyes finally meeting mine. You were so good to me, Darren. I didn't want to mess that up, but you did. I said, the way you betrayed me. You used me, Eva. She looked away, tears welling up in her eyes. I know and I'm sorry, but I never meant for it to go this far. I felt a surge of anger and moved closer to her. My voice rising, I said, do you have any idea how much you've hurt me? She flinched but didn't back away. I know, Darren, and I hate myself. Why did you start a relationship with me if you still had feelings for him? I asked, my voice breaking. Was I just a pawn in your game? She took a deep breath and her voice barely above a whisper. At first, I thought being with you would make him jealous and make him realize what he lost, she said. I started to care for you and got caught up in my own lies. The room was silent, the air heavy with unspoken words. I could see the regret in her eyes, but it didn't help ease the pain. I just couldn't do this anymore. I said, I can't do this anymore. I couldn't be with someone who used me like that. Eva reached out her hand, resting on mine. Darren, please, we can try to fix this. I shook my head and stepped back. No, Eva, it's over. You made your choice, and now you have to live with it. As she left, I felt a strange sense of relief. The confrontation had been painful, but it had given me the closure I needed. I could finally start to heal. To move on from the woman who had shattered my trust, I decided to get revenge on her so that she would feel the same pain as me. With every click of my keyboard, my resolve hardened. I would make Eva pay for the deceit she had woven around my heart. Sitting in the dim light of my home office, I could hear the quiet hum of the computer as I worked. The initial shock of her betrayal had faded, replaced by a cold, calculating anger. The phone call and the confrontation had left me reeling, but now I was determined. I wasn't going to be her victim. I had to take control. I logged into her email account, something I had helped her set up. I never imagined I would use it against her. It was disturbingly easy to hack into her phone from there. I used the same skills I had employed countless times to solve problems for clients. I navigated through her phone and found more than I had bargained for. Text messages, photos and videos, even. All of them documenting her affair with her business partner. My heart ached as I saw the timestamps. I realized how long this had been going on. The intimate moments we shared now tainted with the knowledge that she was splitting her time between me and him. I opened one of the messages. I was sick to my stomach reading it last night. I can't wait to see you again. I clenched my fist, feeling the anger surge through me. This was the proof I needed, but how could I use it to ensure she felt the same humiliation and betrayal she had inflicted on me? An idea began to form. I remembered the merger meeting she mentioned, the one with all her top executives and potential new partners, was the perfect opportunity. I would expose her in front of everyone and show them the true face of the woman they trusted. I downloaded the incriminating files onto a flash drive and made a plan. I would attend the meeting under the guise of helping with the technical setup, something I had done before. No one would suspect anything. Memories of our relationship flooded back. Our first date, the way she laughed at my jokes, the nights we spent together. Each memory now felt like a dagger in my heart. How could she do this to me? How could she pretend to love me while lying in another man's arms? My phone buzzed, breaking my train of thought. It was a message from Eva. Can we talk? I ignored it, focusing on my plan. I couldn't afford to let her manipulate me any longer. She'd already done enough damage. By the time I got to her office building the next morning, I was already pretty nervous. I set up the projector in the conference room, and I felt a strange calm come over me. This was it, my chance to reclaim some of the power she'd stolen from me. I walked in, and her eyes widened in surprise. Darren, what are you doing here? She asked, her tone neutral. I'm just helping out, I replied, forcing a smile. Thank you, she said, nodding. You're welcome, I replied, as I took my place at the back of the room. I was in a room full of executives and potential partners. I took my place at the back, the flash drive ready in my pocket. Eva started the presentation. She was confident and smooth, as always. She was good at this, charming people and making them believe in her. But today was different. When the moment came, I stood up. I pretended to adjust the projector while I inserted the flash drive. My hand was steady despite the adrenaline and excitement coursing through me. The screen flickered, and then the images appeared. Photos and videos of Eva with her business partner in intimate and compromising situations. Guests filled the room, and there was a stunned silence. Eva's face went pale. She opened and closed her mouth as she struggled to find words. "What is this?" one of the executives demanded. His face turned red with anger. Eva turned to me. Her eyes were wide with panic. "Darren, what have you done?" I stepped forward. My voice was calm but firm. "It's time everyone saw the real me. You, Eva, the woman who pretends to care about her colleagues, her business, her boyfriend, while deceiving them all." The room erupted into chaos. Eva's business partner tried to defend her, but it was too late. The damage was done. I watched as her world crumbled. A sense of grim satisfaction settled over me. She betrayed me, and now she was facing the consequences. I left the room feeling a strange mix of relief and sorrow. This wasn't the ending I'd imagined for us, but it was the one we had. I'd taken back some of the power she'd stolen from me, and now I could start to heal. I could finally start to rebuild. My life was free from the shadows of her betrayal. Eva had taught me a hard lesson about trust and betrayal, but she had also shown me my own resilience, which I was grateful for. The silence after the storm was deafening as I walked away from the chaos I had created. I couldn't help but wonder if I had gone too far. The conference room was filled with echoes of outrage and disbelief, but as I stepped out into the bright sunlight, it did little to lift the heavy feeling in my chest. Eva's world had just imploded, and I had been the catalyst. Her colleagues looked at her with a mixture of disgust and pity. I was filled with disgust and pity, while her business partner slunk away, avoiding eye contact with everyone. The once promising merger was now a smoldering ruin, just like our relationship. As I walked to my car, I heard a familiar voice call my name. It was Alan, one of Eva's colleagues. He jogged up to me, his expression a mix of anger and confusion. A mix of anger and confusion. "Darren, what the hell was that?" he demanded, his voice rising. "The truth, Alan. Everyone needed to see the real Eva." He shook his head. "But this in front of everyone. You destroyed her. She destroyed us." I replied, my voice firm but tinged with sorrow. "I just revealed the truth." He sighed, rubbing his temples. His temples were tensed. "I get that you're hurt, but there had to be a better way." Maybe I admitted my resolve was wavering, but it's done now. He stared at me for a moment before nodding. "Take care of yourself, Darren. This kind of thing leaves scars." As he walked away, his words lingered. Scars, yes, there were plenty of those. I got into my car and drove home. I was thinking about what had happened that morning. I'd been pretty satisfied with exposing Eva, but that feeling had quickly disappeared. When I got home, I collapsed onto the couch, feeling exhausted. Memories of our last physical encounter flooded back. It was a night of anger and desperate passion. It was the final act of a relationship that was already fractured. Eva came over unexpectedly, her eyes red from crying. She said, "We need to talk." I nodded, letting her in. We sat on the couch, the air thick with unspoken words. I said, "I'm sorry." She whispered, "I never meant to hurt you like this. Why did you do it?" "Eva," I asked, my voice raw with emotion. "Why use me to make him jealous?" She looked down, tears spilling onto her cheeks. "I thought it was the only way to get him back. I didn't realize how much I would hurt you in the process." Her words cut deep, but so true. Despite everything, I still felt something for her. Maybe it was love, or maybe just the ghost of it. We moved closer, and before I knew it, we were kissing. Our hands were tearing at each other's clothes. The encounter was rough and urgent, filled with a mix of anger, sadness, and a desperate need for connection. We were trying to hold on to what we once had, even though we both knew it was already gone. When it was over, we lay there in silence, the reality of our broken relationship settling over us like a heavy blanket. "I can't keep doing this, Eva," I finally said. She nodded, tears still streaming down her face. I knew the memory had faded, leaving me with a sense of finality. That night had been our goodbye, even if we hadn't realized it at the time. There had been betrayal, lies, and hurt. It was all too much to overcome. Eva and I broke up, but the next day my phone buzzed, pulling me from my thoughts. It was a text from Eva. "I lost everything. Are you happy now?" I stared at the screen, my heart heavy. What could I say? I was sorry. I wish things had been different. None of it would change what had happened. I typed a response, then deleted it. There were no words that could make this right. Instead, I put my phone down and walked to the window, looking out at the world moving on, oblivious to the drama that had unfolded. I had taken my revenge, but it had come at a cost. I had hurt someone I once loved, and in the process, I had scared myself. The fallout of my actions. I couldn't think of any words that could make this right. Instead, I put my phone down and walked to the window, looking out at the world moving on, oblivious to the drama that had unfolded. I'd taken my revenge, but it had come at a cost. I'd hurt someone I once loved, and in the process, I'd scared myself. The fallout of my actions was severe. It was pretty bad, and I knew it would take a long time to recover, but for now all I could do was take it one day at a time. I was learning to live with the consequences of the choices I had made as the sun set, casting long shadows across the room. I made a silent vow to myself. I would move forward, but I would never forget the I learned that trust is fragile, and once broken, it can never be fully repaired. Love, no matter how deep, cannot survive in the darkness of deceit. Eva's messages flooded my phone, each one more desperate than the last. I knew I couldn't go back to the person who had shattered my trust. As I read her messages, I felt a tug at my heartstrings. Her apologies and pleas were like a knife to my soul. But I was determined. Darren, please hear me out. One message read, I know I messed up, but we can fix this. I love you, it said, but it felt hollow. Still, something inside me urged me to meet her one last time. I wanted closure. Both needed. So I agreed to meet her at a quiet cafe, a place we used to frequent when things were simpler. The cafe was nearly empty when I arrived. The soft hum of background chatter barely audible over the sound of my own heartbeat. Eva was already there, sitting at a corner table, her hands nervously clutching the cup of coffee she'd ordered. She looked up as I approached, her eyes filled with a mixture of hope and regret. Darren, she said softly, getting up to greet me. Thank you for coming. I'm here, I replied, sitting down across from her. Eva, she began, her voice trembling. I'm here, but I'm not sure what you expect from this. I just need you to. She trailed off, her eyes filling with tears. Please hear me out. I took a deep breath to calm myself down. Go ahead. She wiped a tear from her cheek. Her voice trembled. I know what I did was unforgivable. I lied to you, betrayed you, and used you in ways I can't even begin to justify. But I was lost. Darren, I didn't know what I wanted, and I made terrible decisions. Eva, I interrupted. My voice was firmer than I expected. You didn't just make terrible decisions. You hurt me deeply. You broke my trust, and that's not something that can be fixed with a few apologies. I know, she whispered. Her eyes were pleading, but I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make it right. I'll go to therapy. I'll cut all ties with him. Anything. Just please give me one more chance. I looked at her, memories of our time together flooding back. The good times, the laughter, the intimacy. But those memories were now overshadowed by the pain and betrayal. It's not that simple, Eva, I said, my voice softening. We can't just go back to the way things were. Too much has happened. She reached across the table, her hand covering mine. I know I can't undo the past, but I promise I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you. I still love you, Darren. That doesn't count for nothing. I pulled my hand away, the unresolved tension between us almost palpable. It's not enough to just love each other, Eva. You've taught me that trust is just as important, if not more so. Without it, we have nothing. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. I understand, but it's so hard to accept that it's really over. I stood up, feeling the weight of finality in my heart. It is over, Eva. We both of them need to move on. I hope you find what you're looking for, but it can't be with me. She stood up as well, her body shaking with sobs. Darren, please. I took a step back, feeling a mix of sorrow and relief. Goodbye, Eva. As I walked out of the cafe, the cool evening air hid my face, a stark contrast to the warmth and tension. I'd done what I needed to do inside. There was no going back now. I'd chosen to protect myself and to prioritize my own healing over a relationship that had been built on lies. The sky was a deep shade of blue, and the first stars were beginning to twinkle for the first time in a long while. I felt a sense of peace. This was the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. I knew I had the strength to walk it alone. As I walked home, I felt a lightness in my step. The burden of the past was lifting, and with each step I moved closer to a future where I could finally heal and find happiness. The end of one chapter and the beginning of another. I knew I had the strength to walk it alone, even though the road ahead was uncertain. As I walked home, I felt a lightness in my step. The burden of the past was lifting, and with each step I moved closer to a future where I could finally heal and find happiness. Again, as I walked hand in hand with my new fiancée, the past seemed like a distant nightmare. It had taught me the true value of trust and love. The sun was setting, casting a warm golden glow over the park. Children were laughing in the distance, and the scent of blooming flowers filled the air beside me. Emily squeezed my hand, her hand in mine, her smile lighting up my world. "Isn't it beautiful?" she said, her eyes sparkling as she looked at the sky. "Absolutely," I replied, feeling the deep sense of peace Emily had brought into my life. I hadn't known it was missing. Our relationship was built on trust and mutual respect. It was a stark contrast to the toxicity I had left behind. We found a bench and sat down, enjoying the serenity of the moment. As I looked at Emily, her auburn hair catching the last rays of the sun, she turned to me with a gentle smile. "You seem lost in thought," she said, nudging me gently. I smiled, thinking about how far we'd come and how far I'd come. Emily nodded, understanding. She knew about my past, about Eva and the pain I'd endured, but she also knew how hard I'd worked to rebuild myself and open my heart again. "You're an amazing man, Darren," she said, her voice full of affection. "I'm so grateful to have you in my life, and I'm grateful for you," I replied, leaning in to kiss her. Her lips were warm and inviting, a reminder of the love and happiness we shared as we pulled away. I noticed a familiar figure walking towards us. It was Eva. She looked different, tired, and older, as if the weight of her past mistakes had aged her. Our eyes met, and for a moment, the world seemed to stop. "Darren," she said, her voice hesitant. "Eva," I replied, my tone neutral. Emily looked between us, sensing the tension. "I didn't expect to see you here," Eva continued, trying to smile. "How have you been?" I said simply. "This is Emily, my fiancée." Emily extended her hand, her smile genuine. "Nice to meet you." Eva shook her hand, looking slightly taken aback. There was an awkward silence, and I could see the questions in Eva's eyes. But there was nothing left to say. The past was behind us, and I had moved on. I glanced at Emily, who was a comforting anchor. "Well, I should go." Eva finally spoke. Her voice was tinged with regret. "I'm glad you're doing well," she said. "Darren, thank you." "Thank you. I hope you find happiness too," she added. Eva nodded, her eyes lingering on mine for a moment. As she turned and walked away, I felt a sense of finality. The chapter with Eva was truly closed. Emily squeezed my hand again, her smile reassuring. "Are you okay?" I asked, looking into her eyes for the first time in a long while. "I really am." We sat in silence for a while, watching the sun dip below the horizon. The park slowly emptied, and the evening air grew cooler. It got cooler, so Emily rested her head on my shoulder, and I put my arm around her. I felt pretty content later as we walked back to our car. I thought about the journey that had brought me here. The pain of betrayal, the struggle to rebuild, and the joy of finding true love. Each step had been a lesson, each setback a chance to grow. I let go of the past and said, "Let's go home." Emily said, "Let's go home," and I echoed her, feeling the warmth. The word resonated deep within me. Home was no longer a place, but a feeling, a sense of belonging, of love and trust. With Emily by my side, I knew I had finally found it. As we drove away, I glanced at the rearview mirror, seeing the past fade into the distance ahead of us. A future filled with promise and new beginnings lay ahead. For the first time in a long while, I felt ready to embrace it with all my heart.